are there any forms invented in the last half century or so that you particularly admire and maybe write within?
No, I mean, I write other forms. You know, I've written, the tradition, for instance, has a bop in it. It has a golden, invented by Alpha Michael Weaver. It has a golden shovel in it, invented by Terrence Hayes. And when I find out about new forms, I try to write in them just because that's what I think I should be doing. And because I might end up with a poem. And every once in a while, if you try to write in a form, you end up in a poem. Maybe you don't. Maybe you end up in a failure. But you can't imagine. I don't imagine that didn't help me, or at least create for me a line. So when I'm working on poems, Kylan, you know, I'm a poet, so I write bad poems all the time, literally every day. Like I mean, if there are 365 days in a year, you know, I mean, you can probably subtract the number 12. You know, that means, what is that? Like 344. There are 344 bad poems that I've written, and 12 that are like either good or workable. I'll see what's up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a poem a month. Does that make sense? So, but here's what I imagine about myself, and really any poet. If you write a poem every day, it is impossible to have those failures without at least one good line. If you have one good line in 365 poems, that's 365 lines.
A couple of poems in there.
Yeah, like that's, I mean, ultimately, what do I need to do other than take the good lines, put them in a Microsoft Word document, and move stuff around until I end up with a first draft? Do you understand what I'm saying? That's a bunch of poems. It's just that you don't get to look at them that way until the year's over. In the meantime, you're just like, well, I'm flailing. Do you understand what I'm saying? But after a point, you have enough mess. You gotta have a mess. You gotta have, I mean, I do anyway. Other people, I think, I remember when we were at school, there's this writer, his name was Aaron Crippen, and we were talking about how we write. And he would write a line, and he would think of the next line, and then he would write the next line. He would sort of work on the poem line by line, like sort of perfecting lines as he went. And I don't write like that. Like, it's a mess. It's a horrible, horrific mess. And I sort of do the shaping all at once after I have a bunch of stuff.
Could you say a little bit more about your process? You just described Aaron Crippen's. How would you characterize yours beyond that mess and then shaping afterwards?
There are many ways that I'll come to a poem. For instance, I'll take a poem, usually a poem that people are, if it's short, it's harder when it's longer, but if it's a short poem, usually a poem that people like, that I don't. A really good example of this is Yeats's Leda and the Swan, which kind of gets on my nerves, but that I'm supposed to like. Do you know what I'm saying? Or to speak of Woe That Is in Marriage by Lowell or something like that, kind of gets on my nerves. Like, okay, do you know what I mean? And then I write the opposite of every word in the poem, and then I end up with a mess. But the mess has words. And when I say the opposite of every word, I mean even the opposite of words like the. What's the opposite of the? I'm making it up. Do you understand what I mean? After I write the opposite of every word in the poem, which brings me to a better appreciation for this sort of historical thing. Like, I have an understanding of its syntax, and I probably like it a little bit better once I've done that. But then I can throw that away, which is what I really wanted to do. And then I have something that doesn't make sense. But I do what we do as human beings when we look at a mess, whether in none of us, I mean, not none of us, some of us, I mean, but I'm not a visual artist. I am not an art historian. And yet, if I see a piece of art that is abstract, I still say, this is about in my head, and that's what human beings do. I mean, we do that if we see two people across the way talking to each other. We start imagining what they're saying given their gesticulations to one another. Do you understand what I mean? So I look at that mess and I say, okay, oh look, here's a line, or here's a thing, or why would I say that, or Another thing I might do is I take, for a while I was really angry with the New York Times, and I remember I told a friend of mine, every time I read an article in the New York Times, by the time I get to the fourth word, it's racist. And so I took the fourth word of not every article, but these particular articles I was reading in the New York Times, and I just put all the words on a Microsoft Word document. And then I threw the articles away. Now I got a page full of words. 3 pages actually full of words. Mm-hmm. Now I see what I can do with those words. I get a line or I overhear somebody say something, I write it down in the notes app of my iPhone, and then I end up with all of those, and then on Sunday, I dump them all into a Microsoft Word document. And they have come from everywhere, people saying everything, you know, me thinking of lines that I can't really service in that moment because I'm in the middle of a conversation and I sneak to like write this line down that I just thought of. Mm-hmm. But I take all those lines and I put them in a Microsoft Word document on Sunday and I say, that's my poem. Now I gotta work on it. So I take what I think of as the strongest line and I put it at the bottom. Take what I think of as the second strongest or second most unique or second weirdest line and I put it at the top. And I arrange everything else associatively. And then from there, I make a decision. I ask that questions, like who is your speaker? Where are you located? Why are you so mad right there? Do you understand what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then I end up with poems. So that's my process. I mean, and then I also do what most younger poets are doing, and that is, you know, I get a line and I push, like I'm having a baby. You know, you get a line and you're like, oh, I got a line, and I don't have anywhere to be or anything I got to do, and I just type the line, and so now I'm going to type a second line, and now I'm going to type a third line. I just don't wait, though. I don't look up at the ceiling. I usually write a line, and my goal is, if I write a line and I think it's strong, to write another line that subverts it, and then write another line that subverts that, and but as I go, where the only thing I might have in common with a writer like Aaron is that I am thinking as I go about sound. If I make a sound in a line, I want to say a thing that subverts it in the next line, but I want to make the same sound I made in the first line. Mm-hmm. And in the third line, I want to make sounds that are similar to the sounds I made in the second line, but I don't want to say what I said, and I don't want to agree with what I said or prove what I said. As a matter of fact, I want to like make what I said seem silly. Mm-hmm. I want to subvert it.
You know, why are you subverting each line as it comes? I mean, what are you gaining from that, and what do you hope for the reader to? How do you hope the reader to experience that?
I just want to be awake when I read poems. I want to feel like I'm alive. I want to be aware of myself. I want to get excited. I want to throw a shoe. You know, one mark of, maybe this is a thing just like in the Black community, but when a person is speaking, or when a preacher is preaching, or when a poet is giving a reading, one way you know that they're really doing something is people start throwing things, which is so interesting, right? Like, you would think that would be bad. Or if people are sitting behind them, they'll start hitting them in the back. Like, it's all very violent now that I think about it. And so I guess what I'm thinking is that when I'm writing, I have to make that feeling happen. The same feeling I want when I'm reading is what I want when I'm writing. I want to stay awake. I want to be alive. I want always to be surprised. How do you surprise yourself? Mm-hmm. And so that's ultimately what I'm asking over and over again as I write a poem. And that's why, I mean, you asked like, what does that serve? I hope that's what it serves, that it serves surprise. That it serves newness, freshness. Wow, I'm awake. That you wake up over and over again, and by the time you get to a last line, you are wide awake. Do you understand what I mean?